Hello, I'm Vicky Parhampton, and welcome to Tag Team Tales of Terror, where another horror author and I work together to create something short and diabolical. Today, I've tagged Ben Young. Ben is the author of the popular novels Stuck and Home, as well as many acclaimed short stories. Welcome, Ben.
Thank you. I'm excited. Thanks for having me.
Of course, what did I miss? I know that was a short introduction.
I think that's it.
That's all there is to you as a person.
That's my entire identity. Yeah. No,
Are
I
you
mean that
excited about Tag Team?
I'm very excited. Yeah. So we've been chatting a little bit ahead of time, and you're probably aware at this point that I'm a severe unrepentant plotter. Like I will work on outlines and character profiles for like a solid month before I start typing the first sentence of a book. So this is really going to push me outside my comfort zone, and I'm excited.
I've been like a mix between a plotter and a pantser, and now I'm embracing more of the pantsing side, and I find you get a lot weirder stuff doing that.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like I've kind of evolved into a bit of a blend. Like I have this clear outline and like a scene list and like really solid characters, but then once I have the characters, they kind of make up their own mind. So
Mhm.
it does sort of end up being like a blend. I don't really stick to my initial outline, which is fun.
I think it's better that way because sometimes you don't even know what's going to happen when you start writing the book.
Yes, which I think is exactly what drives me to want to be a plotter is like I want to get it right and I want to know, what are real character motivations and what would a person actually do and what makes sense. And I find that out as I'm doing all the organizing and then doing the writing.
That makes sense. So I know this will be an interesting exercise for you then because this is all, well, this is recorded, but basically it's live. And we're not going to stop. We're just going to do it. And whatever comes to mind, it's going to be fine.
All right, let's
Okay,
go.
so we're going to get into the rules here. So, Tag Team Tales of Terror, as you know, is a progressive story where we alternate telling bits of the story until we reach some sort of satisfying conclusion, until we both say, okay, it's done. So, we'll each get about 30 seconds before we switch. So, keep your eye on the handy timer that's going to be right here. And I will have a prompt that I'll draw from a hat to get us started. And then, as my guest, you get to go first, which is definitely the harder job, so I'm sorry.
All good.
If you want a pen and paper to jot things down as we go, that's totally fine. Maybe not, up to you. And we're aiming for about 10 minutes, but if the story is longer, if it's shorter, that's okay. And then after putting you through all of that, I have a surprise for you.
Okay.
Okay, any questions?
No, that sounds awesome.
Okay, here is my handy dandy hat.
Well,
Okay,
that's very
okay, let's see. See what we got. Anything you hope it's not.
hard.
No guarantees. Okay.
No, I'm open.
Your in-home robot has gone berserk.
Wow. Okay. We'll go a little sci-fi then.
Yeah, so tell me when you're ready and I will start the timer.
Okay. Yeah, I'm ready. Ready as I'm gonna be.
Here we go. And
It was 3 p.m. on a Saturday when I first heard the strange noise outside my office door, and I walked out to find our in-home robot stuck in the corner facing away from me and making strange noises that I'd never heard it make before. I went to find the manual and turned to the troubleshooting page, but there was no help there. So I decided to start pushing random buttons.
And the more buttons I pressed, the more I realized I had no idea what my robot was actually capable of. I had never noticed before, for example, that there was a typo on the robot. And instead of saying stop, it said storp. And so I pressed storp because I thought that would make it stop. And then it just started swinging its arms wildly and making these huge gouges in the wall. And I just was so happy that I was not in front of the robot when it started doing that.
My first instinct was to get some sort of object to fend off the robot, and the only thing close by was a kitchen chair. So I looked like a reject lion tamer for 20 seconds, trying to force the thing into one of the nearby bedrooms so that I could at least contain it long enough to call for help or come up with a better plan. Unfortunately, it shredded the chair in a matter of seconds and grabbed one of the splintered legs and turned toward me.
I backed up as quickly as possible, but I knew I had run into my fridge when I felt something cold against my back. And I thought the only way that I will possibly get out of this is I gotta either look for the manual or I gotta call the 1-800 number on the robot. Unfortunately, the 1-800 number was on the robot's back, which would mean I would have to go all the way around, open up his panel, and get it without being impaled by the chair leg he was still brandishing at me.
Luckily, next to the fridge was the countertop where we keep our knives. So I managed to grab the biggest one and block the first blow from the pokey end of the broken chair leg, which was aimed straight for my upper arm. And then I dodged to the side. And before I could get around to the back control panel, I managed to put a glancing blow on that start button, but that was clearly a mistake.
When I realized now that double pressing the start button caused the robot to start spinning wildly. And now I realized there was absolutely no way I was going to be able to get a look at that control panel. I needed a plan B. And just as I was trying to figure out what that plan B might be, my best friend Andy walked in. And he looked at the robot and said, "Dude, why did you program it to do that? That's going to hurt somebody."
So, of course, I couldn't process anything he was saying, but I was glad he was there. And I just started shouting, "Help me, Andy, help me. This thing's going to kill me." And that's when the robot started laughing, which I did not realize that it was capable of. And that made me think that there was maybe more going on here than just some bizarre circuits interfering with one another. Perhaps this robot had been hacked, and I might be in for more trouble than I'd originally seen.
Andy stared at me and said, "Dude, what is our plan here?" And I did something stupid, but it was all I could think of at the time. I tossed him the knife, handle first, and after screaming, Andy managed to catch it and only get a slight cut on his hand. And he said, "Bro, what am I supposed to do with this knife against this robot?" And I screamed, "I don't know, stab him, do something." And Andy, thank goodness, jumped up and stabbed the robot, managed to get him to stop spinning, but then we both realized that the robot was bleeding?
And not bleeding battery fluid or oil or what you might expect, but it looked like actual human blood. And that caught me off guard more than anything else that had happened so far. And before I had a chance to react, the robot managed to drive its sharp wooden chair leg into my leg, right in the meaty part of my thigh. And I dropped the knife and scooted away on my butt.
Oh my gosh, Andy screamed, staring at me. "Dude, we need to get you to the hospital." But of course, the robot was now still spinning and spraying blood everywhere, and I did not want to remove the chair leg from my leg because I knew that would cause me to bleed out. So, as I started to fade away into unconsciousness, I thought, who is the one person who I know would do this to me? Who hates me so much that they would hack my robot to try and kill me?
And it dawned on me, just as my eyes wanted to slip shut, that the laugh the robot had been emitting at first was one I recognized. And now I was hearing it in stereo. The robot was laughing, Andy was laughing, and they were identical. And then he said, "You moron. You always thought that I was just going to stand by and let you get away with it. But then I found out what you were doing, and now it's time to pay."
And as I tried to stay not slipping away into the blackness, I was so upset that Andy had learned my secret. I thought that I would be able to get away with stealing his dog and making it participate in an illegal dogfighting ring. I never thought that Andy was smart enough to notice the scratches on Scruffy's muzzle, but I guess he was. And I think that this was a little bit of overkill because, come on, a dog versus stabbing me in the thigh with a chair leg?
Before I could pass out or say anything in my defense, Andy kicked the chair leg sticking out from my thigh, and that brought me back to full motion and consciousness. And I scrabbled away on the floor on my hands and knees like a weary bug, trailing blood behind me, and trying to think about the circumstances that had brought this robot into my house. What had Andy done to set me up like this?
It was so simple. Andy had he had made it so that I had won a bet. And I was so excited because I was able to get his in-home robot away from him because I thought it was the coolest thing ever, thinking that it would do my laundry, do my dishes, cook for me. And really, ever since it had come into my home, it had been nothing but a nuisance. Today was the first day it had gotten violent, but it broke dishes. It got spots all over my laundry. It was totally incapable, and now I think that was on purpose.
None of this, however, explained why the robot was bleeding human blood. So, of course, my mind, reeling for any sort of rationalization, seized upon that. And I asked myself, what would cause that? Could there be some sort of human components inside this thing? And is it something Andy had built? Of course, I'd known for a long time that he was a researcher at a nearby laboratory for robotics.
And I thought, okay, if I can just crawl towards this robot, maybe I can understand what the secret is, and maybe I can find some way to solve this. I mean, I thought Andy was really smart at computers, but just not very smart at friendship. And, everything I'd seen today had really proven that to be the case. But then again, nobody cares about the dogfighting ring. That was fine. So I crawled toward the robot, which had started to stop spinning so quickly. I grabbed its leg and yanked it down with me while Andy was still laughing maniacally behind me.
Before I could get any further away, Andy flipped me over with a swift kick beneath my chest, and I was lying on my back, looking up at him and the robot towering over me, my blood pooling on the carpet, my hands too weak to push myself away, and the whole room was spinning. And that's when Andy revealed the secret of why the robot was bleeding.
Andy reached up and ripped the head off of the robot, which I thought for sure would break it and stop its murderous spree. But instead, the robot's face was just a mask. And when the mask was removed, I saw my own face staring back at me. And as I looked down at my own body, I saw that I wasn't who I thought I was. I was no longer bleeding. In fact, my entire body felt strangely metallic.
You idiot, Andy said. You completely missed everything that's been happening for the last 6 months. You thought that if you stole my dog, I wouldn't notice, but I found a way to transpose your consciousness from your body into this robot. And you didn't even notice the typos on the buttons. Did you even read the manual? It was 3 pages, and most of it was not even coherent sentences. But now you're screwed because you're not human anymore.
And as I looked down at myself, I realized, you know what? I'm not human. I can just stand up. I'm not going to lose consciousness. I'm not going to bleed out and die. And so I stood up. Andy actually offered me his hand and pulled me up and said, you know what, Scott? Let's just put you in the file of failed experiments. I never should have programmed you with all that AI. It's really my fault. So go ahead and turn around and let's go ahead and switch off that off switch. I think it's time for you to go down.
He put me on a strange looking cart, and I was honestly relieved because I didn't have to fight anymore. And then he wheeled me next door to his house and down into the basement. And down there were a series of tunnels, and he led me into those, pushing the cart ahead of himself through a darkened hallway into a room that smelled of motor oil and human waste. And I thought, this is really getting weird.
Yes, and he pushed me onto a table, he lifted me, and he then flipped me over to access what I now assumed was my own control panel. And as he flipped the off switch, he said, don't worry, Scott. Remember, your consciousness is over here in the other you. You'll wake up, and maybe when you wake up, you'll be less of an asshole.
And that's when I realized that he'd been running experiments on people trying to devise the perfect human body that was part man and part machine. And he proceeded to explain to me how he had created these things beneath the surface of his own house, and no one knew anything about it. And if I were to ever reveal his secrets, that he would shut me down permanently.
And obviously, I didn't want that. And that's how the story I've ended up down here in this basement for the past 10 years, keeping Andy's secret, but at least keeping myself alive.
Feels like a good spot.
That feels like a good ending.
Hey,
Okay, I
wow.
had no idea where that was going
No, me neither.
at all.
No. Yeah, it took a few turns for sure.
It
You're
did. I mean,
really
yeah.
good at this. Like I'm trying to trip you up and you're just like leaping over these hurdles like it's nothing. So
Oh, I was feeling slow today, so thank you.
nice. Well, I did not seem that way at all. So
Thank you. That was no, that was good. I mean, you would not know that you were not a pantser.
yeah, well, maybe I can put that on my resume now.
No, I think so. I think that's fair.
Qualified pantser. Yeah.
Well, now we have to name the story.
Okay. Man or machine?
I like it. That's it. That's the title.
Sweet.
No, that one was fun. And yeah, so I don't know about you, but I am hungry after all of that work. That was hard. And so I created a recipe based off of Stuck just for you.
That's amazing.
So this one was a little bit hard because, as you know, there's not a lot of food in the book. So I thought, okay, Stuck. What about something sticky? So I made a sticky toffee cake just for you.
Oh, that sounds amazing.
Well, it's not only delicious, but also like kind of healthy. So if that's something you're going for, it's this awesome cake that's made out of bananas, oats, eggs, and milk. Then you've got chopped dates and walnuts in there for texture. And then it's also super easy. You can make the whole batter in a food processor. And then once it's ready, put it in a pan, bake it. And then when it's cool, you poke all these little holes all over it, which is actually super fun and cathartic. And then you pour this caramel over it that's made out of almond butter, maple syrup, and vanilla. And then it soaks into the cake through all these little holes. And it turns out absolutely delicious. It's the best kind of cake for literally any time, especially for when you're reading Stuck.
Nice. Sign me up.
I will. I feel like I need to have these in my booth at AuthorCon, just all the treats that I've made based on people's books because it's fun and they all turn out really well.
Yes, I would hang out at your table for sure.
Thank you. And everybody, I will include this recipe in the show notes for those who want to enjoy the perfect sweet treat while reading Stuck. Or any of Ben's books, really. You can't go wrong.
I don't think you could read any book and that would not pair with it. So
It's true.
very
It's true.
picky, but that's okay.
But maybe for your next book, include more food so I don't have to work so hard.
Fair enough.
Just a
I'm
thought.
at a point where I could add something. So still a
Hmm.
lot.
That one was a challenge. Of all the recipes I've created, I had to think really hard about that one.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's any food in there because I don't typically write about food. I'm not a foodie, so there might have been
Yeah,
scene because I feel like there was a part where he was like his tastes were changing or something.
I know. I was like, okay, great. He's gonna eat something, and then he's like, nah, not hungry. I'm like,
Not
damn
hungry.
it.
Wow. Well, there's embalming in my other book, so maybe there's
Oh,
something
yes. I would be
tasty.
honestly terrified if there was something I could base around embalming, but you never know.
You never know.
You can get creative here. Clearly, we just saw that.
We did.
Well, thank you so much for doing this with me. I know you're a little bit nervous, but you did great. You would not ever know that you hadn't done this every day of your life, honestly.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It was really was fun because it's I get stuck in the process of like having the whole scene in my head before I
Mhm.
start typing. But the downfall there is I just go back and keep changing everything. So pushing ahead without having to revise anything is very kind of freeing.
It is, because like I've gone between pure pantsing and then doing a lot of plotting, and I've ended up somewhere in the middle. Kind of like a
Mhm.
light outline that I can ignore, or but it gives me some sort of roadmap, and I think that's kind of my sweet spot. Because I find when I plot too much, the book has no spark. It's just
Yeah,
boring, falls flat.
I like that. That makes a ton of sense.
Mm. Well, where can people find you and keep up with you and your work?
Yeah, so I on Facebook more than any other social media app or site at just Ben Young Stories, and my website is www.benyoungstories.com. Also on Instagram, I don't use that one quite as much, but that's Ben Young Stories too. And my books are available and through bookstores, independent bookstores, or through Amazon. But you can find the links at my website for all of them, including the.
Awesome. Fantastic. And this short story that we created will also be typed up as well. So who knows where that will go?
That could be cool. I know it'll be cool.
Yes. Man or machine all the way.
Yes, that was fun.
Well, thank you so much.